Thank you so much. Welcome to the Center for Creative Leadership webinar, Building Resilience in Times of Disruption, Crisis and Telework, presented by Erica Reynolds of the Center for Creative Leadership, also known as CCL. My name is Tracy Dobbins, and I'll serve as your webinar moderator for today. At CCL, our sole focus is leadership development, education, and research. At today's webinar, we're excited to share the importance of resilience and leadership and practical ways to enhance personal and team effectiveness during times of crisis. I'm pleased to have with us today Erica Reynolds. Erica is a leadership solution partner and at the Center for Creative Leadership. Welcome, Erica. I'll now turn the session over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Tracy. I'm excited to be here to share CCL's approach to building resilience in times of disruption, especially given the current state of dealing with a global pandemic that we're in right now. So let's review today's agenda together. All right, so today we're going to go over outcomes, and then we're going to talk about the case for resilience. We're going to talk about resilience in the whole self, and we'll look at 4 types of resilience and then 8 practices amongst those 4 types. We'll end it with some commitments and allow you to have a question and answer period or provide any insights that you have through the session. So without further delay, let's begin our journey to building resilience together. Let's go. So our team of developers for this module includes experts in mindfulness, psychology, and academia across the world who are in some cases very deeply impacted by COVID-19. So in difficult times like this, there's enough tension just trying to manage the business, right, or the operations side of things. And that can really feel overwhelming. So one key component to making sure that we continue to keep sharp minds and show up at our best through this rapidly and ambiguous time is to maintain and strengthen our own resilience. So building resilience in times of disruption is so important in order to continue to do the important work with our best foot forward. As a leader, you've probably learned about navigating through difficult situations, right? How to keep setbacks in perspective, how to influence. We learn all of those things. But all of this work has helped you realize your value as a leader is based on the choices you make. So today, we're going to give you the understanding and the tools that you need to have more control over your choices and increase your chances of showing up as your best self. So we have 3 key learning outcomes for today. And as a result of this session, you will better be able to understand 4 areas of resilience. That's physical, mental, emotional, and social. Enhance personal resilience with proven practices. This is going to include exercise, sleep, very important, mindfulness, reappraisal, savoring, gratitude, connections, and contact. And then also, you'll be able to better help your colleagues and teams be more resilient over time. So that's great. You'll be able to pass that forward. So let's look at the case for resilience. I think I went one slide too. Okay. So why is resilience important? CCL has been conducting research to help clients lead during high stress and disruptive situations, like the one we find ourselves in right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. What we've learned working with clients around the world is that no matter the issue being faced, resilience is critical. So let's start out talking about why resilience is important. Accenture did a study that indicated 71% of corporate leaders report that resilience is very to extremely important in determining who to retain. So I want you to think about this. If you're being paid to be your best self and you don't have the capacity to get back to your best self quickly, you are affecting your ability to influence, have positive personal interactions, your ability to see the big picture, and then that can become quite contagious and impact the organization as a whole. So I want to dig a little deeper. Let's take a look at these 3 columns that we have here. And in each section, we pose a question about resilience. As I read these out loud, If you have a piece of paper, you can kind of write down, or you can type into the comments your thoughts as an example within each of these categories. So we'll begin. What does not being resilient look like? So we're thinking in terms of behavior. What do you see? When you or others aren't bouncing back from a disruption, what might that look like? You may see someone being closed off or kind of shut down, right? Poor communication, I see Natasha Knight says. Burnout, Annette, very good. So in the middle column now, let's think about what resilience does look like. When you see a peer or a colleague who seems resilient, what do you see from them? Optimistic from Jenny. Consistency, very good. These are great, yeah. So you get it. You know that there's something that's identifiable when someone is being resilient and when they're not. So finally, what is the impact of resilience? When you're not resilient, or when you are resilient rather, what's the impact of it? Calms yourself and others. And I think that's probably a huge one. Thank you, Annette, for that. Change. These are good. They're coming in so wonderfully. You guys got it. Results, someone says, that's right. When you're resilient, you can focus on your results and keep moving forward. Thank you for that. These are great. So let's talk about the definition of, one definition of resilience as it pertains to leadership, right? So resilience increases your ability to show up as your best self. When we are in our red zone, okay, we are usually in a vicious cycle that we create for ourselves that drains our energy, and then we create worse self-conditions. We call this our mindlessness state versus our mindful state, right? And yet, those vicious cycles are not easy to pull ourselves out of, especially when we're in the middle of disruptive times. We can risk sinking deeper and deeper into that red zone if we're not careful. And what we have to intentionally regulate our inner world during these difficult times. So how many of you have heard of VUCA? Okay, so we've heard for years that we live in a VUCA world. Yes, thank you, Jesper. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, that's right, it has military origins, and ambiguous. So this often throws us into a vicious cycle. I want you to think about your day now that you're working from home. So I'm going to give mine as an example, okay? I work with people in multiple time zones, right, all over the world. So information is just, it never stops coming in. And so I found myself working for hours, sitting at my desk. Sometimes I forget to eat. Sometimes I forget to stand up. And now my daughter has homeschooling, which I know that you guys are having to deal with out there too. And so we're balancing this, and it sucks up my bandwidth, right? And so I'm not sure when to stop my day because people are still emailing me. 4 o'clock in the morning, do I answer that? Do I go back to sleep? Is it important? I don't have that blissful drive home anymore where I used to be able to just kind of disconnect and just think of nothing and listen to the radio. So this is really important, and it also keeps me from sleeping well. And then we go to sleep, and the cycle starts all over again. So in addition to the challenges we face as part of everyday work, there are certain contexts which can confer additional unique challenges. Let's take the case of telework or working from home. Decreased boundaries between work, home, and spaces right now we're experiencing. Physical disconnect from coworkers and colleagues, and even just a greater reliance on technology to stay connected. And we can get burned out on that on top of that. I know many people are getting, video conferenced out lately. Working longer hours and more stress I see too, that's right. So what about now also in the context of COVID-19? Telework in times of stress can create even more challenges, especially with this. So some of those are on top of that. Telework in times of stress, again, very challenging. COVID-19 is increasing worry and distress about our safety and the health of others as well as ourselves. We have to worry about our coworkers, our parents, our friends, our family. increased uncertainty about many aspects of daily life, again, including work, not knowing what's going to happen with the economy and our jobs out there. Office and homeschool, I'm seeing here from Anthony, exactly. So as we can see, adapting resiliency practices to telework is especially important right now. There's a need to be more resilient. We try to navigate during such a sudden and unexpected and disruptive time. None of us saw this coming, and we are just it just adds to the stress of our everyday jobs and family and things, on top of that. But I want to look at another definition of resilience here, something else to consider. Resilience is the capacity of a system, enterprise, or individual to maintain core purpose and integrity in the face of dramatically changed circumstances. So in other words, resilience is what gets us through disruption, and it breaks us out of our automatic fight, flight, or freeze tendencies. But guess what? Resilience takes work. We have to be intentional about it. So now we're going to look into the actual 4 types and 8 practices around resilience. So resilience is a whole self effort. To truly be resilient, you need to tap into elements of your physical, mental, emotional, and social self. We're going to be drawing on these 4 areas of ourselves to work on our resilience. We'll dive a bit deeper in a minute, but first, let's take a quick pulse check. In the chat, I want you to type, which area do you think that you currently need the most help in to build your resilience? Which of these 4 areas in the chat? Physical, social, mental, a little bit of everything, lots of physical, mental. So yeah, I'm seeing an excellent mixture of everything. We need it all right now, right? We need a little bit of all. I have good news for you. Some of these tackle all of these. These are great. So we're aware, right? It's good to be aware of where you need a little extra boost. So hopefully some of these will be able to help you. Thank you for that. All right, so while these 4 areas are useful for understanding how resilience can be leveraged in different ways, in practice, we are whole humans, right? So we have all of these areas that we need to focus on. We're not separate entities. So many of the resilience practices, again, can activate more than one area. So for the rest of this course, we're going to look at 8 that have been shown to help boost resilience in multiple areas. So that'll be of some help. The first we're going to take a look at is exercise. So Sharon McDowell Larson, she's a CCL senior faculty researcher and doctor of exercise physiology. Sharon, who formerly worked with the U.S. Olympics, has studied for years the connection between effective leaders and physical health. Her research shows that regular exercise and effective leadership, they go hand in hand. So leaders who exercise regularly were rated significantly higher by their bosses, their peers, and their direct reports on their leadership effectiveness than those who did not exercise. Imagine that. Time invested in regular exercise, even if it means spending less time at work, is correlated with higher ratings of leadership effectiveness. So it seems that a healthy lifestyle can help executives better cope with the stresses and demands of their positions, and then ultimately increase their leadership effectiveness. So what kind of exercise is needed? Kelly McGonigal has referenced studies which indicate even low-intensity exercise affects stress, mood, focus, self-control. Green exercise is especially good. Now, green exercise refers to physical exercise undertaken in natural environments. So how do you do this? I want to share with you some quick tips here in order to maximize your efforts. So create a move reminder. I don't know if you guys know the app Remind. It has a blue brain as the icon, where you can set reminders for anything. And guess what? Resilience is the perfect activity to set a reminder for using that app. Again, try green spaces, get out if possible. We know we're social distancing, so if you have a backyard or just step outside or put your mask on and walk around during a break just to get out. Schedule your workouts and make sure that you schedule your workouts just like you would a meeting. And then incorporate good nutrition, and I really want to emphasize this one here. Does the amount and type of food we eat impact our ability to think and the long-term health of our brain? What do you think? Yes, food can and does have a profound effect on the brain. So when CCL asked whether diet impacted their performances, 75% of executives said it clearly impacted how they felt and performed. 75%. Most reported that when they didn't eat well, they felt sluggish, lethargic, and less alert. Now, conversely, they said a healthy diet helps with sleep, energy, and feeling better. And guess what? Plant-based diet, whole foods diet is the best course of action, says McDowell Larson. That's according to the research. All right, so we have a few quick tips too when focusing specifically on telework a little more. Learn a handful of simple stretches that can be done from your living room, your office. Again, take 5 minutes. Do a squat. During your webinars or what have you, do a squat. Make sure that the camera is off, though, so we don't get distracted by seeing it. Give yourself a 10-minute break before or after every online meeting if you can. Take a brief walk. CCL offers free 5-minute core workouts. There's a link here. We will also send that to you, so no worries. You'll have all of this information, the slide deck, and any links and supporting info to reference back. So we got your back. All right, now we're going to move on into our second resilience practice, and that's sleep. I think that's my favorite thing. So how many hours of sleep do you typically get in a night? Let's see, put it in the chat for me. I see 7. We have 8, 6, 5. Okay, not too bad. 3, 4. Okay, I got some information for you, 3, 4. I see that. 2 or 3. All right, Elizabeth, great. So guess what? People ask how much is enough, and we ask sleep expert scientist Jessica Payne, and she supports the conventional wisdom that the average person in the general population needs between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. So the majority of us here, I see in the chat, we're right below that. So we need to think about it. There are some people who do need very little sleep, but that actually is very rare. That's around just 3% of the population can actually make it on less than 6 hours of sleep without risking actually any cognitive impairment. So it's very, very important that leaders are getting their sleep in, and CCL research has done research on sleep habits of leaders, and it shows that 42% of leaders are trying to get by on around 6 hours of sleep. So when asked how many hours of sleep they needed to feel refreshed and rested, leaders on average said they needed 7.52 hours. That's more than half. 56% said they needed 8 or more hours. Nearly 2/3 of leaders reported a gap between the sleep they need and the sleep they actually get. So this is actually known as sleep debt because it's the amount of sleep owed in order to perform at one's best. The average sleep debt was 53 minutes per night, so we're not sleeping enough. I have a confession to make. I probably sleep an average of 45 hours, so I have to work on this myself, but it's hard. It's tough. But guess what? You don't get any better when you have less sleep. Your capacity doesn't adjust and you become less aware of what you messed up. So it's something that we need to actually be mindful of. A lack of sleep diminishes concentration and impairs memory. I'm just going to read through a few of these and highlight them. It can trigger moodiness and increase stress and anxiety. And do you know it can increase health problems, anxiety, hypertension, obesity? I'll give a quick example of how sleep affects. So I was working with one of my leaders who works at an investment firm. And, you know, investment banks have very long hours, lots of money on the line. And he was going without sleep for probably about 3 days because they had a big deal that they were working on. And so finally he comes to my office and he says, Erica, I need to talk to you. This is not really about work. I feel like I'm getting really aggravated. Like I feel angry and I find myself snapping at my daughter more, and that's not really like me. And I'm just trying to wonder, what's going on? And I said, hey, David, I see that you've been working a lot. Like, what does your sleep look like? Because we had some conversations around him not sleeping before. And he says, I probably go home, shower, maybe take a nap for an hour and come back because we got to get this done. I said, I promise you, the reason that you're feeling more angry and irritated is because you're not sleeping. He didn't believe me. So I gave him a challenge to go home for the weekend, get you at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep, and let's see what happens. He came back Monday. And he thanked me and he said, I didn't realize how much not sleeping was impacting me. Because, when you're younger, you think you can just do it and you stay up late and you knock it out. But, sleep really does impact your mood and your health. And so he had to learn that and made sure that it was a priority. I always like sharing that story because we think we're invincible, but we need our sleep. All right, so I have a little quiz for you guys here. Type in true for the first one, or false for the first one, or true, false, or whatever you believe is the right answer. So the brain shuts down during sleep, true or false? And then alcohol helps you sleep, true or false? I see false, false. All right, very good. I see false, false. Lots of answers coming in. Let's see what we got here. We have a bunch of sleep experts on our hands here on the line. So people used to think that the brain shut down during sleep, but that's not true. A lot of work goes on when we're asleep, so that's false. When we sleep, our brain cycles through various stages. The brain stays very active. So about every 90 minutes, we enter rapid eye movement. So that's our REM sleep. Without sufficient REM, all the intake from the day does not get processed. So our brains need our sleep. Let's look at this next fun one. Alcohol helps you sleep. What do we have? I saw a lot of false there. And so I'm glad to see that because some people think that it does. If you've had several drinks at the end of a long day, you probably do feel sleepy. The properties in alcohol can help even the most high energy person relax and fall asleep more quickly, but it won't help you sleep through the night. The dehydration, we get dehydrated, right? The dehydration caused by the alcohol leads to shallow sleep, often resulting in awakening and really vivid, weird dreams rather than deep, restorative sleep. That's so important. So drinking alcohol before bed can cause you to have problems staying alert the next day. So have your last drink 3 hours before you sleep to ensure your best night's sleep. So you don't have to totally give it up, but try to make it at least 3 hours before. So let's get some quick tips going here for you. We have 8 practices to help you with more restorative sleep. The first one is set a regular sleep schedule. Do this even on the weekends because that can throw you off if you start to stay up late or wake up really, really early or sleep in late on the weekend. Try to keep the same schedule. Create a relaxing atmosphere in the bedroom for yourself. So remove electronics, keep the temperature 69 degrees, around there cool, no light. Understand your unique needs. Now, this is tracking your sleep to know what you need. Jessica Payne of the Sleep, Stress, and Memory Lab of the University of Notre Dame says, go to bed at the same time every night and sleep until you naturally wake up. Try this for 2 weeks and see how you feel. If you need to adjust, try 20 minutes more and then just keep testing it out so you can understand what works for you. Exercise. Physical exercise helps you sleep. Try 20, 30 minutes a day. Even small bursts of exercise count. For the most part, it benefits from a sleep perspective at least 3 hours before you go to bed that you want to do your exercise. I actually noticed this myself. I've incorporated more exercise being at home. I even have an under-desk elliptical that I'll do while I'm on calls. And I have a more restful sleep. And then a bonus, I actually wake up less for a little midnight snack. I sleep through the night, so it's a little bonus for you guys there. All right. Also, you want to disconnect. So pick a no device time where you don't check your phone at all. Put work aside. So CCL research found that the inability to psychologically detach from the work was one of the biggest predictors of sleep problems in leaders, even when controlling for things like age, individual differences, and lifestyle. None of that mattered. While easier said than done, trying to disconnect work for a few hours before bedtime in order to allow your brain to psychologically detach from the workplace worries is best. I promise you, don't worry, it'll be there for you when you wake up in the morning. Control your caffeine and alcohol intake. We talked about that. Don't do caffeine after 2 p.m. because it kind of stays in your body there and can disrupt your sleep. And then honor your body clock. Some of us are, we are night owls. Some of us like to get up in the morning. And the way that work is set up now, it really caters to those that like to get up in the morning, but we're all different. And it's not right or wrong. It's just how we are biologically. And so right now, while we're doing this telework, you really may have an opportunity to flex how you work. Maybe you can do more work at night and sleep a little later. Find what works for you. Great. So our next practice is one that I believe you all have heard a lot about lately, and that's mindfulness. So even if you've been paying a small amount of attention to all the media out there, you've likely noticed the rise of mindfulness. But what is mindfulness? So John Kabat-Zinn, the medical doctor who's now famous for bringing the idea of mindfulness into modern Western thought, defines it as the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So let's break that down. Mindfulness is about our intentional control and focus, essential tools of high performance, and regardless of your field or expertise, this is relevant. And yet, our world, our habits, our unexamined routines are often quite counter to and detrimental to focus, presence, and enhanced attention, which leads us away from showing up as our best self. So there's been some scientific research on mindfulness, and it's really exploded in recent years. And the evidence as to why mindfulness is a key resilience practice. For instance, studies show that mindfulness can improve our mental health. It lowers depression, anxiety, increases energy. It also shows that it improves our physical health. It can lower your blood pressure or chronic pain. It also can improve performance associated with memory, emotional regulation, perspective talking, and attention. So a recent CCL study on hundreds of mid-level leaders found that the baseline mindfulness level of those leaders predicted many desirable leadership attributes. I'm just going to read a few of these. So when those who practice mindfulness had more creativity, and novelty seeking, more psychological capital, more hope and resilience, and they were lower in negative moods and rumination. All right, we're going to practice a little mindfulness for you briefly here. Don't worry about that link. Again, we're going to send that to you. It is for your convenience, and you can practice mindfulness with that YouTube video, but we're going to do a little bit here. We're going to breathe in and out, breathing in from a count to 4, breathing out on a count to 6. I will let you know when to do it, and we're going to practice being mindful and just escaping for a bit. So you ready? Eyes closed, and inhale. Exhale. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. What do you think? I already feel a little bit calm. It takes, it's always great to be mindful and just breathing in and just, really taking that time. Syed said he fell asleep. Well, wake back up, okay? We've got more great tips for you to maintain your resilience here. So quick tips for telework, again. Minimize distractions, so establish quiet hours and break periods. Create a list of daily goals to help you stay focused. And for your colleagues, help focus meetings by muting all non-essential audio during the meeting so people can be really mindful and present with whoever's speaking at that time. Communicate whatever challenges you're having so they don't, swirl in the mind there. Just be really open and upfront about it so everybody knows. All right, now we're going to go to reappraisal. So whether we are aware of it or not, we are constantly reappraising our situation. So for example, in this situation, during a virtual meeting, you hear colleagues discuss important updates that you were not aware of about a project you're leading. What would you do or how would you feel, right? So you might feel left out, unimportant, ignored. You even may feel disrespected. You can assume all kinds of things about why the coworker, what they had intended, why they didn't tell you. These feelings and assumptions might cause you to react negatively to their discussion. We can quickly make assumptions about intent, which can shape our feelings and impact our future behaviors. But then how we react is going to eventually have an impact on those we lead and others. So quickly making assumptions of the intent of others based on snapshots of information can really lead to unnecessary tensions. Once again, we gain additional information. We need to inquire. We need to know that it's possible that the actual situation really wasn't what we thought it was. So cognitive reappraisal is the scientific term for what we just discussed. Specifically, reinterpreting an emotional charged situation in a different way, a more balanced way, considering what information might be missing or what assumptions might have been made, or considering a new perspective. So if we go back to that and think about what we just experienced with that situation we talked about, what may be some other key pieces there that we're not, what else may have happened that we weren't aware of? And I saw someone say maybe they just didn't have time to communicate. You know, there could be millions of reasons. Maybe they just learned about the update right before the meeting started, right? So there are many other reasons why. Maybe they didn't read the email well, right? Thank you, Christina. There are so many reasons. So congratulations, Christina, Tamika, all of us. We just practiced and experienced cognitive reappraisal. So considering how having these new thoughts makes you feel when you don't just assume of a negative intent, but you're like, you know what, maybe it's not what I think. What were the effects of having considered other perspectives? Less anxious, less tension, more open-minded. You know, it's really critical to practice reappraisal when communicating virtually and via email and text as well, because you don't have as much context. You don't have that face-to-face there, and things can be misunderstood really quickly when you're just doing it that way. So you want to make sure that you ask questions or don't just assume the worst. So if you find yourself faced with a tense situation, pause, check your assumptions, practice cognitive reappraisal. It can really improve your personal and professional relationships a great deal. Now we're going to go into savoring. So it's important to understand that all emotions are functional in nature, whether they're positive or negative. So in other words, they send important messages. For example, fear can make us adverse. Excitement can foster creativity. Positive emotions have a way of broadening our perspective by supporting resiliency and helping us mitigate negative emotions. Now, they can also help us build new skills along with creating a more positive psychological state. And so negative emotions can serve to benefit us in a way where they are indicators of potential threat, right? They can highlight or call our attention to something that we need to pay attention to. It's not always a bad thing. But when does this go, when is it not done well? When is it overused? It's pretty common for us to over-focus on the negative, okay? Think of Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you're familiar with that skit with Debbie Downer. I remember one episode she was at a wedding with a group at the table, and they were all, you know, oh, how was your ride over here? And we're so happy to be here. And everything she said was just very, very negative. You know, oh, I lost my bus coin, and then the music would play in the background. You know, wah, wah, wah. So if you know someone like that, say yes. If it's you, say oh no. And trust me, there's no judgment. We've all been yes and oh no. We can fluctuate. So by the responses in the chat, I can see that this, you all agree that this is common. But this is called a negativity bias. Barbara Fredrickson's research has shown that this over-focus on negatives is an important survival skill. So I want you to think again, fight or flight. But by focusing on the negative to the exclusion of the positive, that can be a problem. So looking across nearly 300 studies involving more than 275,000 people, researchers found that positivity produces success in life as much as it reflects success in life. Happiness is associated with and precedes numerous successful outcomes, as well as behaviors paralleling success. So as Barbara Fredrickson notes, regardless of whether success was measured as a satisfying marriage or a larger salary, better health, positivity mattered. So the idea is that you have to be able to take in the good and appreciate the positive things as they come along. So now we're going to go into a practice taking in the good through a resilience practice called savoring. So savoring refers to being mindfully present and engaged with your experience of positive events in order to fully take them in, just like when you think of savoring food or savoring the moment. It's just really being able to take it all in. So I want you to think of a positive event that happened to you. Recall what it felt like to go through that positive event. This could be physically, emotionally, mentally. Maybe look at a picture and think about what feelings come in a picture that you love of your loved ones or at the beach. What was it like, right? Yeah, very good feelings. They bring good things to mind. Remembering that, being able to really soak in that joy in everyday life is important. And through this pandemic, we are often asked how we're doing, right? Everybody's like, how are you? How are you? Make sure that you share positive emotions as well with your team, not just the negative. Now, what good happened yesterday? Or what did you enjoy? What was that like? You know, I was able to snag a delivery time with my local grocer the same day I ordered it. I don't know about you guys. That's a big deal right now. So that brought me joy. I was excited, and I was pumped for the rest of the day, and I shared it with people, and they understood. So even the small things can be savored and bring up positive emotions. That's right, Marissa. It's like the new lottery. I totally agree with you. All right. So now we're going to go to the next practice of gratitude. Gratitude has been found to relate to greater well-being, greater life satisfaction, greater sense of connectedness to others, and greater physical health. And also, guess what? Improved sleep. Just being grateful gets you more sleep. Wow. Research supports that writing gratitude notes to others has also resilience benefits. So it also taps into social aspects of resilience. Again, we like to team them up here. So the most effective gratitude notes express what the person did, how it impacted you, and they're concrete, specific, and brief. One thing that I like to make sure that I do is incorporate with my team or colleagues is just simply leave a letter of gratitude of something they did, and they totally don't expect it. It feels good to me and them. I appreciate your dedication. Thank you for taking the time just to listen to me, or how about I just appreciate you. I want you to think back on a time when you received a letter of appreciation from someone, whether it was a client, a friend, a colleague, and how did it make you feel? So if any of you just smiled on that reflection like I did, you know, we know it's a special thing, and people want to be acknowledged. They want to be appreciated. I agree, by the way. I see that Beverly says handwritten notes are a lost art, but you can also email, but that's true. People want to be acknowledged and appreciated. So remember, when we show gratitude to others, it not only benefits them, but it also benefits us. So here are some quick tips with Telework. I'll just go over a few of these. Thank your team for the efforts. Send a gratitude note to a colleague via email. Maybe you can mail it to them. That would be great. Start emails with gratitude, or just maybe make it a weekly or bi-weekly thing where you're focusing on gratitude, and it just becomes a part of the practice. Next, we're going to go into connections. So high-quality connections. Research shows that high-quality connections make us more resilient. They also involve trust, support, respect, and the ability for playfulness. Imagine if your workplace was filled with these types of relationships where people trust, supported, respect, and playfulness. So what are some real tangible things that you can do in order to foster this type of work environment? You could cultivate high-quality connections. Ask a colleague for advice. People love giving advice, right? And it makes them feel more connected with you and honored that you asked. Exchange positive feedback. Also, what about paying it forward? You know, we remember that doing something kind without anyone asking for it or without expecting anything in return. I love this one. I see Sheila loves it too. Paying it forward. So how about for telework, what can we do? What if you ask the other party if they want the video on or not? Maybe they just assume you did it. Maybe they do. But just caring enough to what makes it okay for them is a good way to connect. Save time for informal conversations during meetings. Use the phone. Use email. It doesn't always have to be a video, different ways. Set up a fun event. We do virtual coffee hours. We do virtual happy hours. We do all kinds of fun stuff with our colleagues at work because we're a relationship type organization, and so we love it. But try some of those, and you don't always have to talk about work, just to kind of check in with each other. It builds connection. So the last resilience practice that we're going to discuss today is social contact. In other words, physical contact with others in our social world, like holding hands, hugging, both social and physical, and we've made it all the way around the diagram, by the way. So social contact has been shown to promote enhanced health, well-being, and helping regulate stress. Now, due to COVID-19, physical will be more challenging. We do understand that, but we also want to reiterate that social physical contact in ways that are professional are what we're referencing here, okay? So now that we have that aside, social contact can reinforce social connections and can be a great way to boost overall resilience. Brief positive social physical interactions like traditional high fives and handshakes and fist bumps. Again, now we're in the COVID days, we could do, virtual high fives, or when we're together, elbow bumps, foot taps. I don't know if you guys seen any of those videos. Those also can be helpful in building relationships. So let's look a little further at this with telework. Find creative ways to replace in touch with, again, virtual indicators of affiliation. So virtual high five, using video during virtual calls, you're face-to-face. Find ways to get contact outside of work. Do virtual happy hours gatherings, friends and family, whatever you can do within social distancing terms, right? So now we're at the end of this wonderful, wonderful webinar on how to be more resilient. We had a little fun. I love reading all of your comments in the chat. These are great. You guys had some great examples. But now we never like to leave a session without getting a commitment from you. So I want you to think of everything that you've learned today and type into the chat, what is one change that you can make in your daily life to become more resilient as a leader? Just one. Let's see what we have here. Move reminders, that's right, savoring, sleeping, practice mindfulness, gratitude. I love it. You guys are picking up from every piece of this chart. This is wonderful. Gratitude, more exercise. Thank you, Syed. Thank you, Jill. Margaret, Eric Benz, awesome. Adriana, gratitude, mindful. We're going to have some awesome leaders out there after this. This is great. I'd love for you guys to post what you've learned on your social media, on LinkedIn, and what your biggest takeaways were from here. That would be great. Share, pay it forward, and share what you learned with everyone else. We thank you so much. So now we're going to have just a little bit of time for questions, maybe one or two, depending.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a couple questions. Again, just send it in to the chat. Just send it to all participants. That would be great. The first question we have is, how do you help a team member when they shut down, Erica?
That's a good one. So what I would suggest helping a team member if they shut down is checking in with them one-on-one. It's not always comfortable for them to express it, especially if you're on team calls or you're just talking about business and maybe they don't think they can express what's going on. These are very trying times, and everyone has their own way that they're coping. So I would schedule a one-on-one with them. I would ask them, hey, do they want to do it via video or via phone call, or even just send an email and just say, checking in with you, how are you? Ask them, what do you need from me, if there's anything, or if there's anything I can do for you. They may not answer you with anything right away, but if you stay consistent, I believe they'll open up and begin to say, hey, guess what? I'm just having a really hard time here. I need a little help and support, and then you can follow up that way. Have coffee breaks together with group members. Very good, Clement. Go ahead, Tracy. Thank you.
We've got a few that came in around how do you deal with keeping up with morale during massive layoffs?
Right. So that's going to be, there's not like a set answer for that, but in the situation, I believe in really just being honest about the situation as soon as you can so people know what they're dealing with. There's a lot of support out there right now, and knowing that, this may not always, it's not going to always be like this. And one day we hope that we'll be able to get everyone back in, but being just as upfront as possible, being as empathetic about the situation as possible, and just trying to, really show everybody that bigger picture there, that we may have to do this right now, but hopefully we'll be able to bring everyone back as soon as we can. That's a tough one. But maintaining those relationships are going to be key.
Thank you. How do you reduce conflicts within the team?
Right. So it's important to find out where the conflict is coming from, or what's causing the conflict. If it's tensions just because they're stressed because of, family, they say the work-life balance, and now it's just work-life all together. And I said the best way to do it right now is work-life harmony, right? And what does that look like? It means that they're going to blend together, so let's make them sing as beautifully as they can. So if we're on a video call and little one, comes running in, everyone wave, say hi, and keep it moving. Depending on what the stress is, right? And so it may be just trying to balance all of these things. We're not operating in our norm. So being just real gentle with each other, understanding if someone's a little late for something, and just know, again, these are not regular times. Talk it out. Do not internalize it. Don't make up why they're upset. Find out.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. So many great questions. I'm trying to find the order of them. There's so many great ones. What about the idea of bouncing forward and using the opportunity of COVID-19 to make real change in your life? Is there any advice for that?
I think that's great. A lot of people are thinking of, when we come out of this, how can I be better? I really suggest journaling. It's not only good for your resilience, but it's also good for goal setting. So when you journal and you think about what things do you want to improve in your life or at your work, or what things do you want to change, you really have time to map it out. Do more research on things, talk to more people to get insight, read more books, and begin to map out your plan. But I do believe in that journaling. So when you come out of this, give yourself kind of like a set structure of what you'll do in order to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. But you can use this time. Reflection is so important when it comes to development, and we really have time to reflect right now, whether it's been forced upon us, right? But this is the time to take it to really improve yourself.
Erica, any tips on helping a team with trust in their leader during this uncertain time of stress and furloughs?
Good one. I always think it's important to, again, acknowledge what it is that you don't trust about the leader, because trust is different to different people, and if trust has been broken, it kind of needs to be fixed in the area that it was broken in, to be honest with you. So if I think that if I'm being upfront, I'm communicating with you, and I think I'm being very honest, but that there's other stuff that I'm not sharing with you, then you're not going to trust me. So I think being really clear, letting them know this is what I need from you. We're having a trust issue. I have these conversations all the time with leaders, and many times they're like, I didn't even realize that was an issue. Being really upfront and being communicative and open, really encouraging your leader and letting them know what you need to see from them, especially during this time.
Great. I think we've got time for one more question. How do you support the employees who are not laid off and feel remorse for keeping their job after COVID-19 ends?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's not your choice, right? If you were able to keep your job, it wasn't that you decided I'm going to keep my job and they get to lose theirs or what have you. And it's okay to feel guilty about that. That's going to happen. That we're human beings and we have feelings and we care about our colleagues. The best thing you can do, again, is not internalize that feeling, not take blame for it yourself, and then you can offer support your colleague. If you want to maintain friendships with them, I'm still here. If you volunteer, give back. But you can't internalize that. It's just, why do some people get sick and why don't others? You know, it's one of those things. I would really just make sure that most people think that keeping relationships are really valuable. And so I think if you maintain those relationships, even for the ones who are leaving, that may be helpful. And things will get better. They will get better.
Well, thank you very much, Erica, for delivering such a great session and very timely and valuable topic. We have reached the end of our time here, but I first want to thank Erica and thank you, our audience, for joining us today. And everyone who attended the webinar will receive a follow-up email with links to the webinar recording and relevant articles on resilience. We will also have a download in your webinar resources. As you exit the webinar, we hope you'll take a moment to complete the evaluation so we can continue to make these webinar events well worth your time. We look forward to your attendance at a future webinar. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much. And remember, our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. Thank you so much. You guys have a great one.